Yesterday we saw another very bullish day for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has now to pick a side, so it is going to make a breakpoint for Bitcoin. Are we coming back up to a new higher highs, or are we going to see lower levels again? In this video I will discuss a lot of interesting formations for Bitcoin with you on the charts, because I see a lot of interesting price action unfolding for Bitcoin. I will also have a look at the two altcoins, Thorchain RUNE and Cardano, because they show a lot of interesting price action as well. There's a lot of interesting data coming in for the Ethereum and the Bitcoin ETFs. There's also a lot of interesting news coming into the market, and I'm going to have a look at some other charts with you, so you don't want to miss any of this. So with that being said, watch this video all the way to the end, like the video, and let's dive right into the charts. On the daily time frame, we can see that Bitcoin shifted from this huge downtrend into a huge uptrend, and this is beautiful to see, of course, for Bitcoin. And yesterday we saw a beautiful green candle after a little bit of a bearish week for Bitcoin, and now we can see a little bit of an higher low play unfolding for Bitcoin. But of course we are now seeing a red candle, and this is the major break point for Bitcoin. So are we going to see more upside from here, or are we going to see a retracement all the way back to lower prices? And that of course will be a very bearish scenario for Bitcoin. But let's see if Bitcoin can pump through this previous high and create more topside momentum, because this will be a continuation of the bullish momentum on the daily time frame. As we can see here, we are seeing higher lows and higher highs, and this could be an indication that we will just continue the price action to the top side, because the trend is your friend until it ends, and the trend hasn't been stopped yet. So I think Bitcoin will still see more topside continuation, as we are seeing the trend is up. And yesterday I was discussing this huge bullish divergence for Bitcoin. We saw higher lows on the chart, but on the RSI chart we saw a lower low unfolding, and that meant that the selling pressure was cooling off, and eventually we saw a huge spike to the top side, and that's especially what was happening on the RSI as well. So we saw a nice bounce to the top side, and the bullish divergence now plays out. So we can erase this bullish divergence because it played out already, and now we can see there's no bullish or bearish divergence, because the price action is the same as on the RSI. So this is looking a little bit more better, because the RSI is now coming to the center of the RSI, and this is looking good, because now we have to pick a side. So we are either going to see a dump or a pump today, and this is looking very good for Bitcoin on the 4-hour chart. And yesterday the Bitcoin ETFs had another crazy day. We saw an inflow of $188 million in total, and we saw especially that BlackRock was buying a lot, and also the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF was buying. We saw a little bit of outflows from the Grayscale ETF, but this is nothing to worry about. So the cumulative inflow is now coming closer to the $22 billion of inflow, and this is having a very interesting price effect for Bitcoin. And if we then have a look at the Ethereum ETFs, we saw a little bit of an inflow yesterday. Only BlackRock was buying in a little bit, and they bought for $2.3 million, so this was also the total inflow of yesterday. And still, the Ethereum ETF is a little bit of a flop, because we are seeing a total outflow of 472 million yet. So let's see if the Ethereum ETFs can also end the week strong. And another interesting chart to look at for Bitcoin on the daily time frame is this huge trendline resistance that was unfolding for Bitcoin on the daily time frame. We can see that Bitcoin was creating higher lows on the chart, and this was having a little bit of a bearish effect. But last week we saw a nice pump to the top side. We created a new higher high after this previous high, and this indicates that we're now in a huge uptrend, because the trend has been broken to the top side. We retested with previous resistance as support, and this previous resistance was confluent with the previous high, and we are seeing a bounce to the top side. And at this bullish retest you could have entered the market in a long, because I'm always saying you have to buy in at a retest, and from this level you could have already been in a more than a profit of 5%. So this was an insane trade to make for Bitcoin, of course. So let's see if we now can see a continuation of the price for Bitcoin and see more topside continuation, or that we're going to see more downside for Bitcoin, and that we're coming back to this previous resistance line again. And another interesting chart is this broadening wedge for Bitcoin. We can see multiple touch points on the top side as resistance, and also on the lower side we can see a lot of touch points as support. And every time we touch this lower side support region, I was telling you that I was been buying more Bitcoin, and I've shared this on my socials, so you could have been buying together with me. Congratulations if you did, because from these lows you could have already been more than in profit than for more than a 30%, so that was insane, of course. And now we are coming to this huge resistance area on the top side, so this could be the make or break point for Bitcoin. And we already can see that Bitcoin is going to make another attempt in a short time. So we could possibly see a breakout to the top side, a retest of the resistance as support, and then we can aim for exponential highs. And if we're going to break out of this huge broadening wedge formation, then the top side of the formation will be the breakout target. And that will be confluent with the previous all-time high around the $73,000. And this is a very interesting chart to look at, and this is the Bitcoin hash rate, and it means that the difficulty for the miners is visible in this chart. And we can see that Bitcoin is almost at this all-time high, and we can also see that the Bitcoin hash rate is at an all-time high, and this means that it is looking good for Bitcoin. And in previous cycles, when Bitcoin was making an all-time high, we saw as well an all-time high for the Bitcoin hash rate. So now we are seeing the difficulty for the miners is increasing and at an all-time high. So this could mean that Bitcoin is also going to pump again. So this chart is looking very good, and it means that the miners are still increasing their hash rate, and it means that the miners are still interested in mining more Bitcoin. And if we have a look at this chart with these horizontal resistance areas, we can see these yellow lines act as huge resistance, and they are confluent with the previous highs for Bitcoin. So these highs needs to be broken in order to become a little bit more bullish. And last week we saw a huge bump to the next big resistance around the $69,000, but then we saw a huge rejection coming into the market as I was expecting on my socials. We saw a throwback to this previous resistance to turn it into support. So this previous high has been gained and is now turned into support. So this is looking very bullish. We saw a beautiful bounce from the $66,000, and now we're coming back closer to this $69,000 resistance area. So if Bitcoin can come back to this resistance area, we could potentially see a bullish break to the top side, and then the next big resistance for Bitcoin will be around the $72,000, and that is confluent with the previous highs for Bitcoin on this daily chart. And after that, if we're going to break this level, then we can just reach for new all-time highs, of course. And if we then zoom all the way out to the Bitcoin weekly time frame, we can see this previous cycle was unfolding for Bitcoin. Now we are in this huge bull flag formation, so this is looking very beautiful. And we can also see that the bull flag formation broke out last week, and that we're now seeing a beautiful retest of the previous resistance to turn it into support. So I think we will just see a continuation of the bullish momentum to the top side, because we are now retested this previous resistance as support. So let's see if Bitcoin can see more exponential moves in the coming weeks. And yesterday we also had a lot of interesting news coming in, and one of the most interesting news articles was that Microsoft will ask their shareholders to vote on whether to assess Bitcoin as a corporate treasury asset. The board recommends a no vote, but I think the shareholders want Microsoft to hold more Bitcoin. And if Microsoft is going to hold Bitcoin, that means that other huge companies will also assess Bitcoin as a treasury asset. And this will of course have a very, very bullish effect on the price of Bitcoins. And this vote will happen in December, so let's see what will happen for Microsoft. And the first interesting altcoin I want to have a look at is Cardano. We can see Cardano is in this huge falling wedge formation with multiple touch points on the top side and on the lower side as support. And we can see every time we touch this huge area on the top side, we saw a big rejection coming in. And we also see this huge trendline resistance was unfolding inside of this falling wedge formation. Cardano broke it to the top side. We came to the top side of the falling wedge. We saw a huge rejection, and from there we saw two bullish retests for Cardano to test previous resistance as support. And now we are seeing a little bit of a grinding upwards, but I think the trend is not very strong here. And of course we want to come back to this top side resistance of the falling wedge formation, and of course we want to see a breakout to the top side. And if Cardano is going to see a breakout of this huge falling wedge formation, then the top side of the formation will be confluent with the breakout target, and that will be around the 52 cents. But for now we are inside of this falling wedge formation, and on the lower side we can also see a little bit of an uptrend unfolding. So the price of Cardano is also getting squeezed into this apex, and we will soon see a breakout for this pattern unfolding. So let's see if Cardano can see more bullish continuation to the top side and eventually come back to this huge breakout target on the falling wedge. And the next interesting altcoin I want to have a look at is Thorchain. If we zoom in on the daily time frame, we can see that Thorchain RUNE is now in this huge formation. On the lower side we can see that RUNE is having a lot of touch points as support, but on the higher side we can also see a lot of touch points as resistance. And eventually this price is getting squeezed into this apex, but the trend is still up. So I think that RUNE will eventually see more of a bullish continuation of the price, and that we're going to break out to the top side, retest the resistance as support, and from there you can enter the market in a long for RUNE. And if we then zoom out a little bit, this level is an interesting level, because in the past we can see a lot of touch points here happening as resistance and support. So this will be the very first make or break point for RUNE to make, because I think if RUNE is going to break this level, we can just aim for new regional highs for RUNE. So this was it for today. Please give a like if you find the video useful. Don't forget to follow me on my other socials, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.